He's too experienced to be that bad.
Formula One's not a charity.
I don't think he should be given the Red Bull seat.
I just can't fathom the Warner thing. You just can't keep holding on to them.
Warner, I back.
Who else is the one saying, I should be taking Dave Warner's spot? Welcome to Sports Ranting. We're going to kick straight off with Daniel Ricciardo this morning at the Miami Formula One Grand Prix. Lando Norris got his first win, which was nice, but not a great day for Ricciardo after a bit of promising form in the sprint race. So, Jimmy, take it away.
First thing straight off the bat, awesome to see Lando get his win. I think at this point, Formula One fans are just happy if it's anyone apart from Max Verstappen. Shocking sort of day for Danny Rick after another pretty promising sort of weekend. It just seems to be that's his new sort of mantra. He's a decent weekend, get the hopes up, and then race day, it just falls apart for him. Around that sort of Miami circuit, coming from last, the overtakes are pretty hard to make, as we sort of saw throughout that race. But yeah, it's the signs are there for Danny Rick that I think we can sort of pull back on. Hey, he should be next to Max, but there's also the signs of if he's given a lot better vehicle, then he should be further up the grid. But yeah, it's just nice to see that sprint race was unbelievable to watch, and the qualifying for the sprint race was just as good. So bring on more positive Danny Rick content for the rest of the season, and Liam Lawson can just go somewhere else.
Yeah, but see, the problem with Danny Rick is the qualifying. It's the same issue that he had during his McLaren stint, because he kept putting himself at the back of the field and then having to try and get through the field when most of these tracks aren't made to go through it. So it's been a problem for a couple of years now. Like, it can't just be an excuse of let's get him a better car, because everyone wants a better car. And like Carlos would be just as good in the Red Bull. And I mean, you switch over any of the other drivers to that Red Bull car, and they're going to be driving well, you know?
I don't know what we're doing with Danny Rick personally. I think we all love seeing him back on the grid. I was pretty shocked when he got a chance to be back among the drivers, midway through last year. He's 35 next month. I'm really at a bit of a loss for what we're trying to do here. I mean, he's obviously a hugely popular figure. Drive to Survive helped that with his profile, but outside of that, it baffles me what's going on, because Formula One's not a charity. You have to earn your spots. Obviously Christian Horner loves him, but I'm at a bit of a loss what we're trying to achieve, because is he going to get any better at this stage of his career? And the results really aren't there. I think we're all sort of hoping, he does show little glimpses. Okay, fine. But, this stage through the season so far, it's fine if he wants to get a bit more time, and they got the new chassis and all the rest of it. But Yuki Tsunoda is generally beating him, in these race weekends, in the wash-up at the end of the day. And I don't really know what they're trying to achieve. And Liam Lawson's a 22-year-old. Like, Red Bull was always a youth program, bring these awesome guys through. Why are we hanging on to this guy as much as he's Aussie and we love him? I'm not clear on what sort of the end game is, other than his popularity, and Christian Horner sort of supports him.
It's 100% the popularity.
Yeah, well, it is. He's the most marketable driver on the grid, and that's why teams are not just keeping him, because he's obviously still doing good. But I don't think he should be given the Red Bull seat next season. But I think Red Bull are gun shy of putting a Liam Lawson straight into that seat after Danny Kvyat and Alex Albon. They tested them too young, and that blew up on them. So they're not going to go for that rookie alongside Max. They want someone of experience and someone who's going to be a good teammate. And Ricciardo does fit that bill. But if you're Red Bull, there's a guy named Carlos Sainz who's without a contract next season. And you put him in that Red Bull, it's him and Max should be clear at the front of the grid.
And to be honest, there should be two Aussies on the thing, but on the grid next year. But it shouldn't be Ricciardo. It should be Jack Doohan, because he should be coming in for Alpine, because I don't know what the hell's happened with Pierre Gasly, but he is absolute trash at the moment. He is just rubbish. But even after Lando's win, they were talking about how this is the best day in McLaren's modern history. I remember a race where they got first and second.
Monza.
Monza. I feel like that was a pretty good day as well. But I guess that shows how that much they cared about Ricciardo and wanted him, and how quickly they shuffled him out the door.
Yeah, I mean,
Rightly so as well.
looking in hindsight, should he have ever left Red Bull? I think most people would
No.
probably say no. He had his reasons. He wasn't happy with how Max was being treated. We, compared to him, we can see what Max has gone on and done now. So, he couldn't argue with that. Yeah, Mertz, that gesture is for why he went to Renault. It was a massive, massive part of that. And but that didn't go well. McLaren didn't go well, apart from an incredible day in Italy.
Renault went quite well for what it was. The second season that he was in Renault, he was fantastic.
Yeah.
So he was probably like, obviously the results weren't there because the car wasn't there, but like for how he drove the wheels off that Renault.
He did. That was a great
I agree
season.
with that, but he'd
Underrated
come
season.
from eight race wins and the third in the championship twice. I mean, what sort of level was he aiming for? But I'm just at a bit of a loss. Okay, I take your point about the marketing. That's what I said from the start. It's just the popularity of the guy, but it's unusual for a Formula One team to stick with a guy with the expectations that they've got coming into the season. It's like they're just waiting for him to kind of recapture something that he showed back in his Red Bull days. The links with him and Checo's seat is laughable. I can't see that happening
agreed.
at all. Yeah.
Well, or will he take Max's seat when Max goes to Mercedes?
Well, I thought we could just have a little pivot to that. Is Max going to go? I mean, that with Adrian Newey leaving, the way things are lining up, you can't see it.
No, I can't see it. I think Red Bull throws so much money at him that it'll be just why would he go?
Well, the only interesting thing will be if they no longer have the most dominant car. If someone else is able to, someone else gets Newey. If Newey goes to Ferrari or Mercedes or whatever it ends up being, just that balance of power, which is what eventually happens in Formula One. We see that's what usually makes the top guys sort of come back to the field.
It will, but Red Bull will still be dominant next season, so Max isn't going anywhere.
No, not next year. Not next
Until they change in 2026, Max will stick with the bull.
Yeah, I didn't mind seeing him interviewed today, coming second, and how he sort of handled that. He wasn't too used to it. Yeah. But no, look, a great day for Lando and disappointing for Piastri. It looked like he had some great pace as well.
That's the game.
Yeah, it's super disappointing because he holds on for another lap or two and that safety car comes out perfectly for him, but that's part of racing, I guess.
Look, we're also sitting here questioning like Ricciardo's place in the sport. Whereas like in China, he was in 7th and looking actually pretty good until Lance Stroll came out of nowhere to rear end him and like destroy him. Like other than Lance Stroll being dangerous, he could have actually been on quite a few points at the moment.
Yeah, it's going to be a very good one to watch for the rest of the season. See how he goes, and if he does keep showing promising weekend signs. And
he just needs to be better against Yuki. Like he just needs to win against Yuki. He needs to get ahead. He's 5-1 in qualifying, 4-1 in races because they both had a crash in China. Like it's not good enough. He's too experienced to be that bad.
Oh, it's the first thing I look at is when we're talking about Ricciardo, where's he and where's Yuki? It's just straight away. Is he outperforming his teammate or not? Look, we'll see how we go.
Him.
What's that?
Yuki's smashing him.
Yeah, he is.
Like he got the top 10, whereas Ricciardo was 17th. And yeah, sure, he like lost the back end, but like he's leaving it too late. He's not doing enough in the first run, and this is his qualifying problem. He keeps qualifying shit.
All right, well, look, we're going to go over some cricket. We've just had the Aussie 2020 World Cup squad announced. There probably wasn't too many surprises. It was, a lot of stories about who was left out and that side of things. But Mertz, what were your thoughts on the squad?
I thought Ashton Agar was a bit of a surprise. But I think the biggest issue everyone has is Jake Fraser McGurk being left out. And you could probably argue that he hadn't done enough and hadn't had enough time, but his IPL form is irresistible. And we've got David Warner, whose IPL form had been pretty trash leading into his injury. And he's coming in injured, a 36-year-old man coming in injured. After we've just had a whole summer where the discussion is Warner getting a swan song fair to everyone else. We've already been through this discussion, and yet they chose him anyway. I think they had this team worked out months in advance, and no matter what anyone did, could force their way into the team. Agar hasn't played. He didn't play most of the BBL at all in the BBL. I can't remember. But
He hasn't played a T20 international since 2022, since the last World Cup.
But is he going to be effective? Because he's a slow bowler. You can argue that he's an orthodox bowler, but he's a slow bowler mostly. He doesn't turn it a hell of a lot. Wrist spinners traditionally do fairly well in the Windies, as far as I can tell. Warney didn't, but most of the time they seem to do fairly well. And in this the Major League Cricket series in the first year, like Adam Zampa was right up there. Like you've got wrist spinners up there. Why isn't Tanveer Sangha being considered or anything like that? But anyway, that's beside the point. That hopefully Ashton Agar makes me look silly. But I just can't fathom the Warner thing. You just can't keep holding on to them for this, to just give him a swan song. Like, why does he need it? He's 36. He's done this sport forever. Like, get the new kid in there, because we're going to get to a point where these guys are going to retire and we're not going to have the team and we're going to go through one of those lulls again.
I will agree with Agar. I think he being in there was a big shock. Warner, I back. I don't like. I agree. Jake Fraser McGurk, his IPL form has been unbelievable, and everyone's been frothing over it and watching every second of it. But Warner has shown so often throughout his career that when this sort of hatred is put on him of why the fuck are we backing this guy in again, he delivers. He delivers, and he delivers every time he's questioned. And he's done it so often on the big stage for Australia that what's one more? Is one more really the worst thing? Look at who we play in the group stage as well. We play Oman, England, yes, but then we play Namibia and Scotland. They're not that harder games. If he doesn't fire in the first one or two, yeah, look at the reshuffle. But this man has shown that he is so valuable in these big moments, and the experience that he brings at the top of the order is just huge. I'm backing him in to just deliver one last time. And again, what's the harm in putting him in there? Fraser McGurk's going to get so many opportunities throughout his career.
But see, this is the problem. Form doesn't last forever. So the way the Fraser McGurk plays is like Adam Gilchrist. And like a lot of the times, Gilchrist would go out and bat more often than most of the players that bat like him. You go out there and you get out for nothing. But when it comes off, it looks bloody great, because you just go out there and hit a century off, 30 balls, what is world record, one-day score. I don't know. I love Warner. Look, I actually really like Warner, and like I've loved what he's done, and I think people carrying on about Sandpapergate, 10 years later, is like, get over it, guys. Like, you're calling it cheating. Everyone's done. If you want to, England have done it 15 times. Like,
if we want to talk about form, Warner's played 4 international T20s this year and scored 205 runs with a 165 strike rate.
Yeah,
I get that they weren't against great opponents, but you can only play who's in front of you.
Yeah,
and he showed that he's still got it.
In March, on Australian pitches, he went to India where the pitches are more turning. And he's averaging 23, but he scored 3 decent scores at the start, and he scored 18, 10, 8, and 1 in his last ones before he got injured.
Yeah, and Fraser McGurk has never played a T20 international, so it's a pretty big call to put a guy in.
So chuck him in against Oman
to a World Cup tournament when he's never played in that format internationally before. Look, I'm the first one. I'm the first one to say that Warner should have been dropped in various formats in the past. I think he was kept in the Test team for 2 years too long. I was kind of iffy about the one-day tournament, but he came out and was Australia's leading run scorer in the one-day World Cup when we won it, so you can't argue with that. This deep bone bruising in his finger that he's bringing into this tournament, which they don't even know when it's going to improve. It doesn't sound great, but it's always that balance between, having an opportunity to pick some young guys to keep turning the team over, because we've had those situations with the Australian cricket team where they wait too long, they keep the veteran guys in there for too long, and then the bottom falls out, and then Australia goes down to the bottom and starts to work its way back. You've got to always be constantly evolving it. And that's where Fraser McGurk seems like a good option to at least put him in the squad, blood him in this tournament, maybe give him a chance against one of those lesser nations or whatever it is. I can see Warner winning us a game in the World Cup, and that's how T20 is. You just have one bloke comes out and is on fire. That can be enough. We're going to need them to fire at the pointy end of the competition. It doesn't matter about what's happening in these pool games, most likely, unless something extraordinary happens. We're going to get through to the next round. It's what happens from there. And I'm normally the one saying Warner should be long gone, but I don't know if there's, apart from Fraser McGurk having an incredible month in the IPL, which is not the T20 International, it's incredible standard, but who else is knocking the door down? Who else is the one saying, I should be taking Dave Warner's spot? And I think Fraser McGurk has run out of time to prove that he's the one.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think it would be just such an aggressive start to come out with Travis Head, Fraser McGurk.
Oh, I'd love it. I'd love it.
Unloading. And you know what? If they're out for nothing, then you have Mitch Marsh come in. And I think we have a powerful middle order. I think it might have also been a mistake to leave Steve Smith out because
I agree with that.
I would just put Smith at 4, and then if we have an absolute belter of a start where they bat for 12 overs and they just the top 3,
you flip it around.
Get us. No, he just drops down the order below. Yeah. I would drop him below Stark and Cummins. I'd drop him to 9 if they're teeing off. If they're not and we're struggling, then I'd bring him in at 4 and he can rebuild the innings.
But they're never going to do that. They don't do radical moves like that.
They should, because it's T20 and this is the way the game should be played.
Yeah, well, they haven't shown that they're going to do that. The Agar one baffles all of us. I think it's probably nice to see Nathan Ellis. I was seeing that he was the leading wicket taker in T20 Internationals last year, which is, you can't argue with that in terms of form. And you got Cummins and Hazelwood there as well. Can Maxwell do it again? I mean, we know how talented he is, but he's had a bit of a break from the sport again. But look, going through the overall balance of the squad, I do actually like it overall. And personally, if I was looking and Steve Smith was in the lineup, I would be having question marks about that because he hasn't shown that explosive form that you need in that format of the game. But overall, I actually don't mind the balance of the squad. I think a lot's going to be on Zampa. I think he's going to be very important to us in terms of taking wickets.
See, Steve Smith, I would have him there just in case it's a 140 wicket. Because you can blast away, but if it's a tricky wicket to bat on and you have all sloggers, you're going to be out for 8.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. I think Australia could either go 250 or 75. Yeah. I don't think we have a middle ground. I think we're going guns blazing or falling in a heap. And it's going to be good to watch if that's what it is, but who knows what the result would be.
What do you reckon? Are we saying Aussies are the favourites? How do you feel it's set up?
Australia have a good shot. It's the same team that goes to every World Cup for the last 4 or 5 World Cups, so they've got the experience to do it, and they've won World Cup. So,
yeah, I still just lean towards India in these sort of tournaments. Just their
they
pool
lose the
of
big
talent.
games.
Yeah, they do that. Sorry, Indian fans, but it happens. But yeah, I still lean towards them. I think Australia's good, and I'm happy with a team outside of Agar, but I would put my money on India.
All right, lads. Well, we're going to have a chat about some footy. Through round 8 or whatever we are, that the Swans are on top of the ladder, and I don't think too many people would have picked that. Some people were saying pre-season that they won't. I know we'll get to your bit, but there's some people that were saying that they might even have a drop off and miss the 8. But I certainly was never one of those people. There was enough promise shown, even though they had a disappointing end of the season in that final against Carlton last year. But I love what Johnny Longmire's done in terms of the focus on the skill level of the players. And if you look at the guys like Blakey and Errol Goulden and Isaac Heaney and the way these guys are playing, there's some question marks over the spine. Obviously, the forward line not having Buddy there anymore, and then the defence and Tom McCartan getting concussed on the weekend. But the conversation we're going to have is, about are they genuine flag, genuine chance at the flag or even flag favourites now that Geelong had their first loss, the Swans are on top on percentage. So, I don't know. Jimmy, do you want to kick it off? How do you feel about where the Swans are placed at this stage?
Well, I'd just like to address that first comment that you made of not many people thought the Swans would do this. And I've got a bet slip that says otherwise, that I jumped on the Swans to win it all before the season started. There's one at least. I tried to tell the old man. He didn't want to listen to that. So I love what the Swans are doing, and I love what they did in the off-season in bringing in Grundy mainly is that was the one that, for me, that basically put them at the top of the pile. I think he's a genuine star of a ruckman. He might not be what he was at Collingwood 4 or 5 years ago, but he is just feeding that midfield, and that midfield runs deep. Like they've thrown Heaney in there, who is an absolute star, and they just to watch them is just so much fun. They're just Goulden just runs all damn day. Chad Warner is basically the form of what he was a couple of years ago.
He was outstanding on the weekend. He was just like he beat the Giants just running.
Yeah,
he was fantastic.
They're just they carve you up, and against the Giants, who were like meant to be the team that just pick teams apart and sprint and run from the back, the Swans just basically deployed that game plan against them, and the Giants had no answer for it. It was incredible to watch, and they've been amazing to watch from the start of the season. And yeah, if you don't have them right now as your flag favourite, then I think in a couple of weeks' time, everyone will be saying or will have them at the top of the list. They're, for me, the team to beat.
They're definitely top 4, and you look at their draw, they've got a pretty good draw ahead, and they've already got through some of the tougher teams. I think, Mertz, we were talking about David King, and he was sort of asked to talk about who he thought could still win the flag, and this was last week, so maybe since the Swans
he changed
pretty much dismantled the Giants, he might have changed his tune, but he was saying Geelong, Carlton and the Giants, and he had question marks over the spine of the Swans, which I can understand to an extent. I mean, they're relying on some small forwards running through there, Papley and Haywood, to an extent, these guys. And, McDonald's developing and coming along. I'm not too sure about McLean. I've got little question marks about him. But can take a good mark and can kick a goal, but I just want to see him stand up in some big games. But what about you, Mertz? I mean, you're in GWS country, but what do you think about the Swans' flag chances?
The Swans still have Luke Parker sitting in Rezzies, not doing anything at the moment. Well,
dominating.
And dominating, because he's Luke Parker, but where do you put him in? Where do you slot him into the team?
By the way, their captain, Callum Mills, is also due to come back too, so that's pretty handy play.
It's just still coming back. And in contrast to the Lions, who lost half their team yesterday through ACLs, it looks like. I just think the Swans are such a better team without Buddy, and Buddy was fantastic for AFL in Sydney. That contract paid for itself.
Tenfold
over.
Yeah.
Just fantastic. No premierships, but it made AFL in this city, and having him go off and have a lap of honour around the AFL last year was deserved, and it ruined the Swan season. And you know what, Buddy, have that season. But they are just such a better team without Buddy. On the weekend, I thought the Giants in a dry game would have actually given them a decent run. But after it started raining in the second quarter, the Giants could not catch the ball to save their lives. It was deplorable, the handling from the Giants. They could not take a mark. It was ridiculous. But the Swans just worked them over, and they did what the Giants do to every other team, where they swarmed them, and it looked like there were 30 Swans out there, and the Giants had no one to kick to. And
they also showed a real physicality that the Giants are known for, and the Swans kind of showed that they can have that tough side of it as well.
Beat them at their own game.
Yeah, I think exactly. I think it's worth almost just crediting the Swans a bit. I mean, we've talked about this, but they've felt for 20 years that they can't afford to miss the finals. They can't afford to bottom out and rebuild and all of that. So they're always just topping up, and the academy has certainly helped. But just full respect to what they've been able to do. 2 years ago, they made a grand final, which they just were not prepared for and got absolutely blown off the park, which, maybe it could have helped some of the players in terms of adjusting to a big game, but it wasn't great for them. And, they probably should have lost that prelim to Collingwood by a point rather than winning it by a point and continued their development, because that's a bit of a black mark to lose a grand final to that extent. But they're coming through. They've played 3 games at the MCG this year. They won 2 of them. They lost a bad one to Richmond, but again, they don't play there again until potentially in the final series. So that's an issue for them, that they don't get that experience on the MCG, like some other teams do when you play those huge finals. if they can get top 4, which looking at the draw, they look very, very strong with a 7-1 record now to get top 4. Get yourself a home prelim and you're one good performance away from a grand final. So I think it's very exciting. I think the possibility of a all Harbour City grand final is real.
Oh, yeah.
There's some very good Melbourne
Melbourne
teams.
love that.
Yeah. They'll still get 97,000 there, I reckon,
Yeah.
or, depending on the Orange Army. But, Geelong are obviously very good. Melbourne just showed what they can do. I really think Carlton are a very good team, and, they've got the right players in a lot of positions as well. So, but it feels quite open. Like Geelong were looking pretty scary. Melbourne showed that they're beatable. But it's wide open, and I think the Swans are right there.
Yeah, so that's what Kingy said about the 3 teams. So last night on First Crack, he kind of said, like, last week it felt like we'd worked out who was going to win, like the teams that were going to win. This week it feels like everyone can win. Everyone's alive. So, I don't know, big weekend, and it's good. It's great to see the AFL is really close and really exciting, and there's plenty of teams that can actually do the job, and
it could change and evolve every week depending on results. I mean, if Geelong had won again, we'd probably be talking about the Cats being unbeatable and can they, run the table.